Let's talk about using Storify to capture an event that occurs usually through social media online. And I'm going to have you use Storify to process the reading of the 20-time book, which is what I'm going to focus on today. But also think about this as something later on you will also be doing to Twitter chats, where you will be storifying those events. And the nice thing about Storify is you can tap into basically social media across the web, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, etc. All kinds of things that are occurring live, and you can bring all that information together in kind of a neat little package format that you can then share. And let me show you a couple examples of that, and then what we'll be doing with these are embedding them on our blogs. And I'll show you a couple examples. The first one was an example of a processing Storify of a book. This particular book was the Global Achievement Gap. We're using the 20-time project. But the idea is that, as you can see here by Michelle from Cohort 1, it was on the Global Achievement Gap. You give these things a title, and then you give a little bit of an explanation on what it is you're doing. You can bring in images, multiple images. You can bring in tweets, which is what we'll be doing. And so what you're going to be doing is pulling in tweets. Notice this one says EDL680Book. We did EDL680Book. You'll be bringing in your peers' tweets to basically process the 20-time book. And so here's an example of the Storify as it would look. And this is, notice I'm having to scroll quite a bit, right? And so that's one way to bring in and embed the Storify in your blog. Another way, and I'll show you another Cohort 1 member. I like this particular way better as a slideshow because, as you can see, she has other posts, and then it embeds itself nice and tight inside of your blog, so I don't have to do a ton of scrolling, and then you can scroll through the Storify in a much easier way. So you're getting the tweets, you're getting the reflection on the tweets, you're getting the tweets, the reflections, so etc. So how do I go about doing this? Well, you go to storify.com, S-T-O-R-I-F-Y, and what you're going to do is, if I click sign up free, you're going to see two options: sign up with Facebook, sign up with Twitter. Well, we already have Twitter accounts, so I would recommend that you all sign up with Twitter. And I happen to have a Twitter account, so I would go ahead and log in. And in this case, I can log in with Twitter. It's going to pull up my Twitter information, and it should just get me right into Storify. And I have a couple other examples, Storifys obviously that I've done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new story. And the minute you click on that, you'll notice that you have sort of a dashboard, and it's all set up for you, ready to go. So I'm going to call this 20-time project reflection. And then I could say tweets and reflections on the text for EDL 680. Now I'm just doing this, yours could be very different. And as you can see now, I'm going to hide that. This is our canvas on the left, and on the right is where we can go get information. And notice I can go into Twitter, I can go into Facebook, I can go into YouTube, I can go into Flickr, go into RSS feeds, Instagram. I can just do a Google search. If I have a link to something, I can bring that in. But what we were asked to do was to use Twitter and the hashtag EDL680text. So I'm going to click on Twitter, and I'm going to show you two, and actually three different ways to do this. So when I'm in Twitter here, notice I can do just a search, which could be searching for a hashtag. I can look for tweets by a specific user. I can look for my favorites, and you're going to see why I particularly love this one. I can look at a timeline, or I can look at a list. And one of the reasons that I would highly recommend that we use these favorites, and I last week showed you that inside of TweetDeck, I made a column for EDL680Book. And I showed you that, and so this is your peers reflecting on this book, and you see that the last person to do this was Maestro Dominguez a day ago. And as you can also see that I have already pre-favorited some of these. from my peers. So I was able to put a column in TweetDeck to see people's tweets that they shared out on the 20 Time Project, favorite some of the ones that stood out to me as possibilities that I might put in my Storify. So I'm going to minimize this. And so I could click on my favorites and put in my Twitter username, so at jheil65. And you're going to see, I love the fact that Jana tweeted a picture of Natalie as the commencement speaker yesterday at Mountain Empire. But most of my tweets, favorites beyond that, were, notice, EDL680Book, EDL680Book, EDL680Book. So the value of doing favorites is that they're right there ready for me to, and all I have to do is simply just grab one of these and drag it over, and it's on my Storify. It's that simple to use Storify. And so there I am bringing that over. And if this is one that I was going to use, if I hover my mouse underneath the tweet, I can explain why I chose this tweet. So whether I chose this because I really agreed with that, or it was new information, or whatever it would be. So, you know, I chose this tweet by Candace because, etc. You know, it supports what I believe the value of 20 Time projects are. Bring over Monica's, go down here, you know, love this quote to try to get students to understand the value of producing work, etc., whatever it would be. So it's really that simple to start to construct a Storify. Let's say I hadn't favorited these things. We know that we can just do a plain search, and we knew that that's why I used a very specific hashtag, EDL680Book. Now when I hit enter here, you'll see very similar things, hopefully. But one of the reasons I like the favoriting, so we see, notice there's 50 results here, and Maestro Dominguez and Candace were the last people to do this. And as you can see, I see a lot of their tweets. These things tend to come in. Jana's tweets are there. Notice most years will come in bursts of 10. But what happens in Storify, because it's pretty much made to be doing events that are occurring in the pretty recent future, if you waited a week or if you waited a little bit longer to go back and do this project, some of these tweets may not be searchable, may not be available because they only keep, have them for a certain amount of time. That's why I would highly recommend using the TweetDeck, creating the column and doing the favorites there. So that's how I can just start to utilize that favorites feature. And then all you saw is that you drag them in. So my expectation for you for processing the 20 Time book is that obviously you give it a title, give it a little subtext, and you'll be bringing in at least 10 tweets of your peers. You can bring in one of your own and explain how they helped your overall processing of the book. And then I usually like to get at least one other sort of non-textual representation of 20 Time project. So that could be an image that you bring in, that could be a video. So I could go to YouTube and I can search Kevin Brookhauser 20 Time. And let's see if anything comes up. Look at this. Don't call it a classroom. Kevin Brookhauser at TEDx Monterey. 20 Time classroom in 2 minutes. So I can click on this and I can preview it. And Kevin posted this. So Kevin's got tons of resources. So if I thought, hey, this might be a cool idea, I'm going to bring, I like that, 20 Time in 2 minutes. So I'm going to bring it in here. See how easy that is? So I can bring in videos, I can bring in images, I can bring in tweets, and then I create these really cool little things that can be either shared, tweeted out, shared as a way of processing an event. Think about one of the, imagine yourself as the classroom teacher and the presidential debates happen, or something like Occupy Wall Street happens, or, this Republican convention for the nominations. There's so much information going on out there. Kids or you as adults could go in and create these Storifys of the events. So notice as I'm creating this, And I can reorder these things. I can easily move them. That's the nice thing about, I can notice I can click on the left-hand side there. I can reorder these things. So once you've constructed the Storify as you want it, it stays in draft form. I can preview the draft. So this is what it would look like out on the web. This 20-time project reflection, tweets and reflections of the text for EDL680. And as you can see, it's got the video I brought in. It's got the tweet by Candace with my explanation of why I picked that tweet, Monica's tweet, etc. And as you can see now, as I go back to revisit the Tony Wagner one done by the cohort 1, now that should make sense. You're starting to see this was her embedded Storify. So that was her processing of chapter 2 of that book. And instead of doing that, we're doing our book on the 20 time. And Sarah's was done as a, there we go. Sarah's was done as one of the Twitter chats, which you will also be doing, where I ask you to tell me the date, the time, the topic, the moderators, if you can. And hers is embedded as a slide deck. So let's see how we do that. So I go over here, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to the edit. Actually, I can probably just click back over here. So I'm going to publish this. Oh no. Multiple editors. I'll click out of this one. Go back here. And tell me I didn't lose it. Maybe I did. Oh no. Oh well. Well, that's a huge bummer. But I'll go to one that I've already done. So we're going to edit this one. And just to show you that, as I go to the published version, so now we have to imagine, if you would, that this was an event where I had a guest speaker come into my class, and I had the students live tweet the event, just to sort of show them what that looked like. And so if I go to I want to look at this published version, so I'm going to click publish. And as you see this come up, I'm going to view and publicize it. So here's where I don't need to, and notice if you used other people's tweets, you can have it notify them. But here's what I want you to see. So notice it has an image on it, and this is the title, and this is the background, etc. But what I want you to see is up here, where it says template and it says embed. This is how we get this to our websites. So when I click on template here, notice I've got it as a story in normal Storify form or a slideshow. Those should be the two options. You do not want to use grid unless you're only using images. So I have it as a Storify. I could do it as a slideshow. And then that's the difference between the Storified version here, the slideshow version here. So you can make the choice, but I kind of like the slideshow because it's more compact on our blogs and our websites. And so you would make the decision whether you want a Storify or a slideshow. You would save the template. So in this case, I'm going to leave it as a story, and then I would click embed, and then I want the full header or the mini header. Do I want a border? And then I get my embed code. And then I would copy that embed code. I would go to my Weebly website. I would do a new post, and then I would embed it into, get that, that HTML code, bring it over there, and I would embed this as a blog post, and then it would come in like this, either as a slideshow, or it would come in as the full story. And that's pretty much all there is to using Storify. And what I expect you to do for this particular assignment simply is to find at least 10 different quotes from your peers. It would be ideal if we could get them from 10 different peers, at least 10, it could be more, that sort of help you process the 20-time book and or sort of support the value that you saw in the book. And that's all you need to do. If you have any questions, let me know, or you can ask your peers, but that's how you do the Storify.